All right, everybody, welcome back to the T.R.I.P Podcast, Toledo Real Estate Investing Podcast. Today is episode number 5, and today we're going through a topic that I wish somebody had made a video about, somebody had told me when I was first getting started, right? This is a topic that, would have given me so much more clarity, so much more energy, I think, and just a lot more just give me an ability to think more, especially in my beginning days, to really propel me further when I was first getting started. And today, these are the things that I wish I knew when I got started, right? And this is going to be specifically geared towards the investing side. So this is going to be wholesaling, this is going to be flipping, this is going to be buying and holding. And some of this will apply to traditional real estate and to real agents and brokers as well. But I'm coming at this from an investor perspective and wholesaler perspective, because that's just what I did when I first got started. So this is going to be great. This is going to be a lot of, hopefully going to add a lot of clarity, hopefully going to add a lot of value to the people, especially to those that are first getting started. Again, this is something these are things, I wrote down 5 things here that I wish that if somebody had told me these when I first got started, I would have had just a lot more clarity, a lot more peace of mind, a lot more, a lot better expectations about what this business is and what I need to do in this business to see results. So if this is a topic that you guys like, drop a like, drop a comment, ask me what else you guys want to see, right? Ask me who else you guys want me to have onto the podcast. I'd love to see all recommendations, all suggestions, and without further ado, let's just get started. So the first thing I wrote down here, and this is gonna sound very, very basic. This is gonna be like a no duh type of thing. But let me just say here and expand on the topic here a little bit. Number 1 is to treat this business like a business, right? Sounds simple, right? Sounds like a no-brainer, right? Well, I can only speak for myself. When I was first getting started, even though I was full-time getting started, I treated this a lot more like a side hustle than I really did a business, right? And what I mean by that is, I can just go back and just tell you what I was doing. I mean, when I was first getting started, I was doing a lot of the things that were were income servicing and not income producing, right? I was treating this more like a hobby and just feeling like I was just going through the motions of my actions instead of actually taking control of my actions and creating an environment for consistent and predictable actions and results, right? And that can mean a lot of things. That can manifest in a lot of different ways for a lot of people. But I see a lot of people when they first get started really treat this like a hobby and not a business. And within a business, there are consistent action items that are done every day, right? There is there's predictions. There's leverage that we use to get where we want to be. And it was all sounding like a lot of fancy terms, but at the end of the day, all that really means is that we focus on income producing activities and we create a daily schedule if you're a one-man show around this, right? So I'll give you my example, right? When I first got started, I was cold calling to get my very first wholesale deal. And I was on the phones every day. And the days that I was on the phone, I was also doing a lot of things that was very not income producing. I would call them income servicing. And that's putting it in a nice way, because some of these things were just not even income servicing. They were just a waste of time. And when I say that, I mean, I was, maybe just going through and looking at records online of properties that I was not going to cold call in the first place, right? I was scrolling through Facebook groups and acting like I was busy, but I really wasn't productive at all, right? I was driving around looking for houses, but, not really calling those houses, right? So I was doing a lot of these things that made me feel like I was busy, but I really wasn't busy, right? Because there was no production, there was no productivity that came out of those activities. And I see a lot of people doing this when they first get started, right? They fall into that same trap. They fall into the trap of being busy and not productive. And when you treat this like a business, you understand that productivity is your number one driver of results, right? The more inputs you get or inputs you put in, the more outputs you get, right? So it's a very simple process, but people and myself included, when I first got started, just don't seem to understand it right away, right? If I did, I would have cut the crap of what I was doing a lot faster and just focused on the important things, right? And say if you're in my shoes, right? And I feel like a lot of people nowadays were in my shoes, where you're cold calling, right? And cold calling to look for opportunities. If that's your number one driver of leads, which is fantastic, create your life or your schedule around that. And let's say you're part time, you're doing this part time for now, or you work another W-2 job. Then what I'm saying now implies even more, right? Because the power of leverage and leveraging your time, right? The time you have. Let's say you only have, let's say after work or before work, you have maybe 2 to 4 hours of your day where you can dedicate to this business, or maybe you just have weekends available to work on this business. Then you need to leverage your time. You need to have that clarity on what's productive and what's not. That way, when it is time to actually work on your business, you know what to do, right? You know that, okay, cold calling, that's what's going to drive the results for me, right? Me going on Facebook groups and scrolling looking for connections, or me looking for looking up the sheriff sales and seeing what's coming up for sheriff sale, and without the intention of buying these properties, uh is not really a very good use of my time, right? It's just not. So being understanding what's productive and what's not, understanding what is income producing, what is income servicing, is really important when you're first getting started. And if you were in my shoes, if you were cold calling, or I'll have another example. Let's say if you're sending mailers, right? What's your number one income producing activity, right? Is sending those mailers and then answering the phones when they come in, right? So if you're doing a lot of these other little minutia stuff that is not really important to the income producing activities, then you need to stop doing them. And or if you can't stop doing them because it's required in your day to day to get your job done, then create a plan to where once you start getting, maybe once you get your first deal, once you get your first couple of deals, you make a plan to where you know how to delegate all that. That way you can get your time back and focus on the important activities, right? And we're going to talk a little bit more about that later on too, as far as the delegating and the investing into yourself aspect of this. But at the end of the day, it all comes back to the point that I have here at the top of the list, which is treat this business like a business, not like a hobby, not like a side hustle, right? Your time is important and you need to treat it like so. All right. Number 2, understand how much work is enough work. All right. This may hurt some feelings, but some people just are not working hard enough, right? Some people don't understand how much inputs it takes to see the output that they want to get, right? Which is a deal. I can relate this back to when I was first getting started, and I'm going to do this a lot throughout this video, just so I can really paint a real example of what it looks like, and what these points really mean, in the real world. And I'm just going to relate them back to my early journey. Was I was cold calling and I was driving for dollars at the same time, right? So I would go in my car, I'd find ugly houses, and I'd just give them a call and see if they want to sell, right? I was at the time, I think I was doing maybe like 50 addresses a week, I think I was looking for, and calling through them through the week. And it took me 5.5 months to get my very first deal. Now, at the end of the day, I think, if I'm not mistaken, it took me somewhere around, I'm not mistaken, I know this for a fact, it took me around 700 addresses to get my very first deal. 750 around there to get my very first deal, right? So you can understand that at the time I was like, whoa, 700 addresses to get one deal? That sounds crazy. That sounds like way too much. Oh, these are ugly houses, right? They all want to sell. You would think, right? Not necessarily the case. You need to understand that whatever you think is a lot of work right now, especially when you're first getting started, making one phone call is not enough, right? Sending out 10 pieces of mail, sending out 100 pieces of mail, making 100 cold calls is not enough, right? You need to do more, right? For example, in my example, I was cold calling. I was looking specifically for for ugly houses, right? In fact, I was actually only skip tracing and calling the addresses that I found that were ugly on the outside and were absentee owners, right? So all the other ones I was just throwing away, right? Which was cuckoo. But that's what I was doing. I was only calling the ones that were absentee owners, and of those, I had to call 700 people. So just imagine if you call the entire list, right? You probably need to call closer to. I think my KPI is about 1,000 to 1,200 addresses, closer to the higher end, to get your first deal, right? But if you break that down, that's only 100 addresses a week for maybe about a couple of months, and then you'll get your first deal, which on average takes about 90 days to get your very first deal. So if you understand how much work it takes to get where you want to go, you can plan accordingly, right? Same thing with the amount of cold calls you want to get. Same thing with the amount of mailers that you want to send out, right? If you send out 10 mailers a week, you're not going to get a lot of deals. You're not going to really see any deals for a very, very long time, right? You need to send out a lot, right? And budget for that, and make sure that you understand that if you're sending out these types of marketing, what it really entails and how and what you need to do to get a return on it. So that's something I definitely needed to understand when I first got started is how much work is enough work. So number 3, and this is a great one. This is a really great one. This is something that set me back a lot. This is something that took up a lot of my time when I was first getting started. And I kind of already alluded to it a little bit. And it is, don't think that you're smarter than you actually are. Oh man. So like the example I made when I was driving for dollars, right? I was driving for dollars, right? I was, looking for houses, and I would only skip trace the addresses that were absentee owners, meaning that they didn't live at the property. They lived at a different mailing address. Just imagine how much extra work I had to put into my day to day just so I can get a list like that, right? And was it worth it at the end of the day? No, it wasn't worth it. It was a huge sucker of time because I was trying to be smart and try to complicate things way more than they should have, when really at the end of the day, all I needed to focus on, if you're driving for dollars, is ugly houses, right? It doesn't matter if they're absentee owner, doesn't mean if they're vacant, doesn't matter if they're vacant, doesn't matter if they live there, doesn't matter if they have 2 families living in there, right? If they're ugly houses, that is the only thing you need to worry about. And that applies to a whole bunch of other aspects of the business as well. Don't think you're smarter than you actually are. Another thing that I ran into when I was first getting started as well, that relates back to this, is the fact that there are, especially nowadays with social media, there are so many different things being thrown at you as far as what you can do in real estate, right? Pace Morby, who's somebody that I really look up to in this business, he says that the hardest part about real estate is the fact that there's so many ways that you can make money. And that rings true even to this day for me, right? Because I see it, I know you guys see it all the time. There are people trying to get you to wholesale that are sending you, that are giving you, sending you videos and are on your feeds, right? There's people that are showing you how to fix and flip. People that are showing you how to be Airbnb hosts. People that are showing you how to be property managers. People that are talking about new construction, right? And they're getting all of this thrown at you, right? People that are showing you how to invest in apartment buildings, right? People that are giving you all this information, when at the end of the day, all you need to do is focus on one lane and just be super consistent with it and just be hyper focused on it, right? And any of these work, right? There's not one that's necessarily better than the other, right? It just depends on what you want, right? If you want to create a business that generates active income for you, then wholesaling and flipping is fantastic, right? If you're at a point where you want to invest your money and to get stable cash flow, buying and holding may be your thing, right? Or Airbnb. Or if you want to start another business in real estate, maybe be a property manager, become a realtor, right? All these things are viable. They're all very, very viable resources, or I should say businesses, to become successful within real estate, right? But you can't do all of them at the same time, right? And that's something that I was falling into heavily, and it set me back a lot, because I remember I was trying to wholesale and trying to look at properties to buy and hold. I was looking at creative finance deals and how to structure creative finance deals when I never did a creative deal in my life. I was doing all these things that were not moving the needle, right? It was a lot of just mental masturbation. All right. Hate to put that image out there, but that's just what it was. It's a lot of mental masturbation. It's just, you seeing something that looks cool, you fantasize about it, you try to do it, but at the same time, you're losing out on time, you're losing out on productivity on what's actually income producing for you, which is what you first set out to do, right? Which for me was wholesaling, right? So think about that, right? Let's just pay another example. If you're a realtor, right, and what's productive for you is listing and finding buyers for homes, and being a realtor, right, and you're just starting, is it going to be the best use of your time to work full time as a realtor, but also trying to syndicate an apartment building? No, it's not. Or trying to become an Airbnb host, or trying to be a property manager. No, it's not the best use of your time, right? Hyper focused, right, guys? Hyper focused, right? Just understand that these things do not make you are not going to give you the edge, right? They're not, just because about some certain strategies doesn't mean that you should actually apply them, right? Don't think you're smarter than you actually are, right? And then twofold, what I want to add to this as well, is that the lane that you are on, simplify as much as you can. Meaning, let's just take it back to my example, right? I'm going to take it back to my early story a lot, guys, here. I was cold calling, right, to get my very first deal. All I really needed to do when I was cold calling is just understand or find out how many cold calls I need to get to talk to a certain amount of people, to make a certain amount of offers, and then all those offers, I'll get one deal, right? It's really that simple, guys. You can really make this that simple. How many people do I have to talk to? How many offers do I need to generate, or I need to put out? And then how many of those I will get one deal, right? But how many of those do we need, right? I'm not going to get into the exact KPIs in this video. That's a whole separate video. If you guys want to have a conversation about that, let me know. But for today, again, we're just going to keep it simple, right? We're just going to simplify this. You can take it back to mailers as well, right? How many mailers does it take for you to get X amount of people to respond back? Of those people that respond back, how many offers do you put out, and then how many of those equal a deal, right? It's just very, very simple. It's very, very step by step by step, right? You don't need to complicate it by adding all these systems to it and all this confusion of what works and what doesn't, and experimenting with certain things. At this point, this is if you're just getting started, right? At this point, none of that is really going to drive the push the needle forward, right? What matters is just how much input are you putting in, right? How many mailers are you sending out, right? How many calls are you sending out, right? And of those, you can start getting data back of what works, and then just simplify it, right? Let's just make it easy numbers. I'm not saying this is true, right? But let's say if you have a real conversation with 200 property owners, how many offers? Let's say you have to put in 5 offers of those 200 conversations you have, and of those, one deal will come up, right? So if you just understand that, if you just talk to 200 property owners, and then of those 200 you put in 5 offers, you will get one deal. If that was your frame, if that's what you're basing your whole business off of, you have a very, very simple business, and it's a very duplicatable business as well, because if you just want to do more, you just add more to it, right? And then you just go from there. So at the end of the day, guys, again, don't think you're smarter than you actually are. This business is really simple. We're just very, very hard, right? Our brains keep going a lot of different places, when it's just got to focus on just going straight on the path that you decided to go on, right? And this translates perfectly to my next point here, which is and this is something that I'm kicking myself for not doing when I first got started. At this point in my journey, guys, trust me, do this. This may sound like an extra step when you're first getting started, but trust me, it'll pay you back tenfold later on in your journey, right? And that is to document everything, right? Especially if you want to make this into an actual business, right? Document everything. Whether it's you cold calling, document that. Whether it's you sending out mailers, document that. Whether it's you setting up your PPC, document that. You coordinating with title, you talking with sellers and submitting offers, you writing up your contracts, you doing anything in your business, all of that needs to be documented. Why? Because eventually you're going to get a point to your business where you doing all the roles is you've maxed yourself out, right? So you need to start bringing in other people that can help fulfill these certain roles, right? And the most efficient way to do that, right, is to document what you're doing and to give them these training videos, these onboarding videos, these step-by-step manuals, right? Just like how all these big companies onboard their people. That's how you should onboard your people as well when down the road, right? So document everything. That way, when you start to need to leverage other people and bring other people into your organization, you have the documentation to be able to smoothly and surely get them to understand their roles, have them understand what they need to do, and to get them on board quickly and get them started quickly, right? So they can start working. So they're not just, in training for 3 weeks or for a month, right? It's just not a very good use of either of you guys' time, right? So make sure you document everything, right? And I know in the beginning, you maybe you can't see that far out. I know I didn't when I first got started. I couldn't see that far out to me bringing on a VA or me bringing on an acquisitions person or bringing on a transaction coordinator. And if that's not your goal, then that's fine, right? If you just want to do a couple of deals a year by yourself and do that, that's totally okay, right? But I'm saying even if you're that type of person, you still would want to have some sort of your day-to-day leveraged, right? Because you don't want to spend all your time doing this, some of the more minutiae activities, right? Like all the data management and things of that nature, right? So you're gonna have to delegate even if you're that type of situation. So when you do delegate, make sure that you document everything in the beginning, right? It's gonna save you a lot of time. It'll even help yourself going back and watching those videos. It's just going to be good for everything. So make sure you document. All right. And that brings us into the fifth and final point that I have here. And this is something that I think this is one of the most important parts of this video. I think this is the most important points of this video. Right. This is something that I struggled a lot with. It's definitely a mindset topic. And this is to learn to invest in yourself and to not be scared of change, right? So let's just relate this back to when I first got started, right? I had done my very first deal, right? It took me about 5.5 months to get my very first deal. I had gotten it, and I had now these funds available to do pretty much whatever I wanted with at the time, right? I was myself. I had no real costs. I mean, I made back the money that I spent on trying to cold call sellers. So I was sitting on a lot of house money, right? So what did I do? I kept it and I hoarded it, and I did not take any of it to invest or to use towards my own productivity and just making my day to day better and more productive. And that was something that really hurt me in the long term, because I was just going at a very, very slow rate. I was working very, very hard. I mean, I was working 10, 12-hour days every single day, more than that a lot of times. But what I was really doing was not enough as far as inputs, right? Especially if I want where I wanted to grow, which is trying to do multiple deals per month. And the reason why I was in this kind of hole for so long was because I just did not invest into myself. And how I could have invested into myself, which I didn't do. And this is going to sound crazy to some people here, especially to people that have done deals, people that have been through this road before. They're gonna laugh at this. But I was cold calling, right? And for 1.5 years, I was hand dialing, right? Hand dialing, guys. Picking up my phone, punching in my number, pressing call, right? That is not a good use of your time, for lack of better lack of better words. I could have very easily spent $100 a month to get a dialer, and that dialer would have 3 to 4x my productivity, right? So instead of me, the amount of people that I would call, for example, in 4 hours of work, I can call in one, right? So just imagine how much productivity I could have had, how much more people I could have talked to, how much more deals I could have gotten, right? Because it all goes back to, getting deals all goes back to talking to people. How many deals I would have gotten if I had invested $100 a month out of a $6,000 deal, right? You know what I mean? You would think it's a no-brainer. I was scared of change. I was scared to invest into myself because I didn't know if I was going to get another deal. And if I know maybe somebody else here that's watching this may relate to this. Maybe you don't know if your next deal is going to happen. Maybe you don't know if maybe the market will change. Maybe I don't know what you're doing is not going to work anymore. Maybe I don't know, some crazy thing happens and you're just not going to get a deal anymore. Guys, there's deals for everybody, and deals will always be available till the end of time, right? There's an abundance of deals, right? An abundance. You need to have that mindset. And with that mindset, you can actually grow far faster and go for way longer, because now that you know that there's so many deals available out there, you're going to do whatever you can to get as much as you can out of it, right? Responsibly, of course, right? You're not going to go and blow all your money on one marketing campaign and then, wait for a long time for it to come back to you, or to spend all your money on, crazy softwares that aren't really going to push the needle forward, or things like that. If you have to start small, which is how I had to, right, to get used to this type of stuff, then start small, right? If you made, $5,000-$6,000 on your first assignment deal, or first assignment fee, and you were cold calling and hand dialing, take a little bit of that money and just put into a dialer, right? That one investment alone is gonna save you so much time and make you so much money, because you brought back so much time. You bought back, let's say you were cold calling 3 hours a day, right? You had bought back essentially 2 to 3 hours every time a day, right? That's 10 hours a week if you're calling 5 days a week, right? Just think about that. Over a month, that's 40 hours a week. That's a whole work week you brought back within the month, just by you spending $100 a month. Who wouldn't take that up, right? And imagine how many deals you're going to get just for doing that. And that'll make your actual work days more productive as well, right? So instead of just a regular 40-hour week, you brought it back an even more productive 40 hours a week. So it just compounds. So that's my story, right? That was something that I personally had to do. I personally could have done to invest into myself, right? Another thing, it can also go back to investing into education, right? Which is something that I'm very, very adamant about in my life now, that I wasn't back then, right? Because back then I was on YouTube University, right? Like a lot of us are when we first get started, right? You hear about this, you get your master's degree and PhD from YouTube University, and you just hit the road running, right? You go out and try to conquer the real world. All right, but that's just, YouTube will only teach you so much, right? I think there is, and I know that there is extreme value. There is so much value in being in the right training programs, and being taught and coached by the best of the best in the industry, to help you grow, and to help you gain knowledge way faster, and to help you keep accountable, right? Especially if it's a coach, right? Because if you have a coach, and I'm not saying I do this, I don't sell coaching products, I don't sell courses, I will never do that. That's not my thing, right? But there are people that do a fantastic job of having these products, and really taking you from no deals, or your first deal, or your first couple of deals, to doing consistent deals monthly, right? To where you're making 10, 20K a month, right? And there's upfront investment, but just think about the return on the in the long run, right? If you're making 15, 20K a month, I mean, 1 month will pay off your whole, your coaching program, right? Or your course, or whatever the case may be. I prefer coaching programs, right? Especially nowadays, right? Because there's so many good ones out there. And if you need a good one, if you're a beginner, I personally recommend Brent Daniels' TTP program. that was my personal mentor and still is my personal mentor. And I've been with him for a couple of years now, and he is absolutely phenomenal at what he does. And I think that if you're just getting started or just starting to gain momentum, there's no better program than his. So invest into yourself, right? And don't be scared of change, right? Because when you invest in yourself, maybe your schedule changes. It can even be the smallest things, right? Your schedule changes and you feel like you're in a new environment where, you're not sure if things may go wrong, right? That's just life. That's just business, right? They don't give you a crystal ball in entrepreneur school, right? I'm sorry, I didn't get it either, right? So I can't predict what's going to happen, if I change one thing or another to help me produce productivity, right? So yeah, I think I hit that home pretty good here. Invest in yourself and don't be scared of change. Trust me, there is no better investment than investing into yourself. And that's about it for today's video. Let's just run through these again one more time just so we hit them home. Number 1, treat this business like a business. Number 2, understand how much work is enough work. Number 3, don't think you're smarter than you actually are. Number 4, document everything, right, guys? Everything, right? If you guys need a tool to help you make this a lot easier for yourself, get Loom. Just go to Loom, look it up on Google, and it's literally going to be a lifesaver for you. Thank me later. All right. And then number 5 is invest in yourself and don't be scared of change. Guys, that is it for today's podcast. Hopefully this added value to some of you. I know that this is stuff that I wish I had when I first got started and somebody had made this video for me when I was first getting into the industry. So if this was value to you guys, make sure you drop a like, put in the comments, what you found valuable out of this video, what you guys want to see next, who you want to see next on the podcast. We do have guests coming, guys. We do have some guests coming in the next couple weeks, so stay tuned for this. Stay tuned for that. And other than that, guys, that's about it for me today. Thank you so much, and I will see you guys next week. Goodbye.